All right, this is Cleopatra, Daughter of the Nile by Kristiana Gregory, part 9, and we are starting on page 92. It is the 20th of Maius. I'm going to move my bookmarks. Okay, page 92, 20th of Maius. For 3 days, there's been much celebrating. Remember those letters that were sent to Cleopatra and her father? They said that Tryphena is dead. Those letters to father detailed how, after we left Alexandria, his friends sneaked into the palace while Tryphena slept, then killed our guards. In my heart, I thought, my father has friends? What friends? Awakened by the commotion, she sat up in bed and screamed for help while putting on her slippers. An odd thing to do while dying, right? But men tied up her arms and carried her through the dark streets to the gymnasium where some of our wrestlers were waiting. One of them stood behind her, grabbed her around the neck with his strong arms. He lifted her up until she strangled. A slipper had fallen from her foot, which was delivered to father as proof. Long live King Ptolemy, each message read. No word was given about Berenice, if she lives, dies, or if she's been put in chains. My heart didn't miss a beat when I heard the report about Tryphena. During one of my many debates with Theophilus, he said that God Almighty created men and women in his image. If this is true, I argued, then surely Tryphena has a good side if we just look hard enough. Maybe so, Cleopatra, he said, but can the Ethiopian change his skin or the leopard change its spots? Neither can they do good who are accustomed to doing evil. He and I in Olympus once spent hours reasoning together on this subject, but in the end, they both agreed I'd never be able to trust Tryphena. Now she's dead. I need worry no longer. And yet, her murder means it would be even easier for the Romans to conquer Egypt. All they'd have to do is quickly kill father and me. And this thought makes me frantic to leave Rome now while we're still alive. I asked father if Tryphena's death means we can return to Alexandria. Oh, yes, daughter, soon. His eyes were clear. He looked alert. I enjoy my father when his spirits are from good news and not good wine. But I do not think he understands the danger we're in. Thus I was quiet when I spoke to Atticus. In a citizen's toga, with his plump white arms, he looked like an imperial rich man. We stood in an office of his villa as a scribe wrote down everything that was said. In my heart, I believe the Romans do not care about us or about our throne. To them, Egypt's merely another province waiting to be seized by their empire. I knew this was true by the way Atticus shrugged his fat shoulders at the report, his big loose lips turned down with boredom. Pompey too was casual. He slapped father on the shoulder and opened his mouth to laugh. A few Latin words tumbled out. I will not repeat them here. But he glanced my way and took a respectful tone. Friends, he said, we'll sup tonight when the moon rises. I've been in my chamber resting from the day's excitement. Tonight's another banquet, celebration. In my heart, I worry that Atticus and Pompey might be planning to kill father and me. To continue. Now I sit at the table by my bed. I must think carefully how to tell father what I've just learned. Neva was pouring hot water into a basin for me as I unwrapped my toga and laid it on the bench. A letter fell to the floor, the one I'd forgotten about. Turning it in my hand, I saw the seal was from a student at the Museum. Theophilus. I opened it with happy anticipation as one who's about to eat a sweet. Theophilus was always pleasant with me and eager to share something he just learned, especially if it came from one of the scrolls of his Torah. My eyes fell to the middle of the letter, in which he had written the words, Berenice has crowned herself queen, in Hebrew. Then I started at the beginning, reading the entire letter several times before I understood. Apparently, of all the messages delivered to us today, Theophilus's was written last. And it was hurried aboard the ship leaving for Rome. He reported this, hours after Tryphena's death. Father's few friends who'd seen to the deed were unfortunately too wise in their own eyes. Congratulating themselves with wine, they soon fell into a stupor. Immediately, they were attacked by Berenice's guards, killed with flying swords. Now Berenice sits on father's throne. I tried to see her in my mind. Was she haughty and proud of her new role? I did know she'd enjoy our dead sister's wardrobe and jewels. I wonder if she's acquired another monkey. And is she now married, which is expected of Egyptian queens? Woe to Berenice. I'm frightened for her. She's too bland and timid to stand up to father when he returns. And did she forget that the Romans were coming too? Evening after sunset. Father took the news calmly. After meeting again with Pompey, all is as originally planned. As soon as soldiers can be gathered, our fleet will set sail, Roman warships escorting us. In my heart, I wonder if I can trust this plan. Another worry is that though father adores me, he's unpredictable. What if the next time he gets drunk, he gets it in his head that I, his third daughter, is trying to seize his throne? His officials would kill me. It's already happened to him twice, right? At times I feel so burdened by these worries. During the meeting last night, I sat up on a stool next to father. We heard someone walking toward us through the long hallway. I knew it was a soldier because of the clicking of his boots made against the marble. For all military sandals have iron hobnails in the soles. We entered the room smiling. He entered the room smiling, his helmet tucked under his arm. Over his tunic, he wore the brass belt of an officer with an apron of leather strips decorated with pendants. These ornaments fell to his knees and made a jangling noise with every step he took. He saluted by placing one fist over his right fist over his heart and then raising it towards Pompey. I was quite taken by the soldier's robust looks and his cheerful manner. Introductions went around. I pushed my stool back to stand and say my name, but I was not going to bow to him. Mark Antony, he responded, smiling at me, and I'm enchanted, Your Highness. He said something else in Greek, but his accent was so rough I didn't understand him. An official standing behind me whispered that Antony, though Roman, was born in my city, Alexandria. He's about 26 years old, and he's the chief cavalry officer who will lead the soldiers to Egypt to restore father to the throne. He seemed so merry, I could not see in my mind how he might wield a sword against enemies. Was he to be my protector? I looked at him directly. In Latin, I said, "Is your good cheer from what you drink, Mark Antony, or from what you think?" He threw back his head in laughter. "Clever girl," he said, "but you're just a child to speak so." Oh, my temper rose. I gave him a cold, hard stare before remembering I must be on good terms with this commander. If he succeeds in deposing Berenice and restores father to his throne, then my life in Alexandria will be safe once again. Safe, that is, if the Romans leave us alone. Safe, that is, as long as father believes I'm his favorite daughter and not a competitor. The sharp words I wanted to say to Mark Antony remained in my head. Thus, I was silent. Father broke the tension with a cheerful report on the weather. As the men joined in with their meaningless chatter, I kept my eye on Antony. He had a well-grown beard and a strong face, and I noticed that his laugh brought smiles to those around him, even myself. After many moments, my heart softened. To continue, a young woman arrived in a sedan chair. She's a bit older than myself and very beautiful. Her hair was swept up in the style of a noble lady, and she wore a white toga with a thin crimson sash. Her eyes were kind. The way she smiled at me gladdened my heart. An official introduced her to me as Julia, the bride of Pompey. I was surprised to see such a sweet-looking girl who was married to that man, that vulgar brute. But even more surprised when she said that her father is Julius Caesar. As we visited with each other, slaves brought in goblets of apple nectar so we could refresh ourselves. They also served us bread, sliced thin and frosted with cheese and bits of black olives. A reader stood by the fountain reciting the latest poem by Catullus, who himself lives in a nearby villa. Well, I'll be brief now, for it's quite late and my eyes feel heavy. Julia's visit was solely to invite me to the theater tomorrow afternoon. I'll be happy to see more of Rome and perhaps make a friendship with her. Let's see. 13 of Junius, still in Rome. Okay. The light's going to turn off. So much rain. I've been ill with a terrible cold, so I've not recorded my thoughts for some days. Now, as I pen this, the hour is late. The house of Atticus is quiet. His reader left an hour ago. For the moment, my companion is the white cat sitting in the doorway that opens to our garden. It is watching a nightingale drink from the fountain. Oh, beware, little bird. To continue about my day with Julia, the streets of Rome are as crowded and noisy as Alexandria's. Slaves carried our chairs with a bumpiness that made me grab onto the sides for fear I would tumble out. It would be a messy fall because the cobblestones are soaked with refuse. kitchen garbage, dung from horses and dogs, and most putrid of all, the waste from latrines that have been thrown out the windows. Stepping stones embedded in the road are the only way people can cross without fouling their feet. Such wretched air. The sides of my sedan had curtains made of thin blue silk that protected me from splashes and from the eyes of curious men, but the heat was stifling inside. Oh, to be home again where the sea breeze is as near as my face. During our ride through the streets, Puso jogged alongside me, and to my amusement, so did somebody's little muddy pig. It followed us until some boys chased it away. When we arrived at the theater, Puso's legs were so caked with dung that he washed in a public fountain before coming in with me. This theater is similar to the one we have in Alexandria, an open-air stage surrounded by seats that spread upward, giving the appearance of a large bowl. We were escorted to the front seats, which are reserved for nobles, that is, senators and visiting royalty such as myself. The next 12 rows behind us are for knights. That's what Julia calls the wealthy businessmen, such grand flowing togas and fat chins. A servant placed cushions on the stone bench for us. I turned around to look at the crowd beginning to fill in the audience. The steps upward were such a steep climb, my heart was thankful that we were on the ground level. Soon the play began. It was titled The Clouds, and it's a Greek comedy written hundreds of years ago by Aristophanes. From where the actors stood, their voices carried clearly to us as well as high up and around the theater. For the audience laughed and hissed at the same time as we did. I was lost in enjoyment. The satire was about our Socrates, but it was also biting. I think if he were alive today, he would drive a sword through the writer. Oh, it was good to be out. I noticed people staring at me from time to time as I was in the front row center, which is the seat of honor. Perhaps they're curious about an Egyptian princess who dresses as a Roman. No matter, Puso watches out for my safety. The play ended at sunset. On the way home, Julia instructed our servants to carry us down an alley that opened into a quiet little courtyard. It was lit by a lantern hanging from the branches of an olive tree. Tall walls surrounded us, and I could hear from the apartments above sounds of families ending their day, children being tucked into bed and other noises. I soon realized we were in a public eating place. We stood at a waist-high table that curved around a charcoal fire. Julia took 2 coins from a pouch that was tied to her belt and laid them on the bar. She told me that children stop here in the morning for breakfast before they go sit with their tutors. The cook put ground meat on a plate, several small bowls on a sideboard, held salt and other spices. He pinched some of each, then added a fistful of pine nuts to the meat, mixing it together with his hands. Then he patted the meat into 2 flat discs, each the size of his palm. From a jar, he opened olive oil and dumped it into the pan, poured it into the pan that was heating on the charcoals. The oil spit when he dropped the meat into it and then began sizzling. I was quite taken with the delicious aroma. Alas, the cook picked up the meat out of the hot pan with his fingers and placed it between 2 slices of bread, handing each one to us. Hamburger, right? We ate standing up. I was so hungry I wanted more, but I did not want to impose on Julia. And I had not thought to bring coins of my own. As we were climbing into our sedan, something splashed near my feet. I looked up at an open window where someone had just emptied their chamber pot. Barbarians. Julia and her guard saw me to the door of Atticus's villa. Thanking her for the lovely day, I asked what our meal was called. It was so good. The usual, she said. Fried dormouse. To continue, bad news has me in low spirits today. It seems there aren't enough soldiers to escort us to Egypt. Most of the military is far north of Caesar, so now we must wait. We need legions to battle the peasants and those who put Berenice on father's throne, but it will be many weeks before men are trained. In my heart, I worry. It's already June. Summer solstice will be soon, and from that day forward, the sun's shadows will grow longer and the days shorter and cooler. Because the wind favors ships traveling south, it would be possible to journey home in 10 days before autumn, before Poseidon and Neptune throw contrary winds at us. But we must leave no earlier than early September. No later, than earlier September. The seas are too dangerous after that. I'm sick at heart about this. There are so many things I miss about home. I miss Olympus and Theophilus, our long talks, our days of study, Arrow and Bucephalus. What has happened to my pets? Most of all, in this summer heat, I miss the ocean breeze. I am princess of the Nile, but this evening I do not feel royal. I want to stomp my feet. I fear I will go mad. Yes, mad. If I have to stay here through the winter. woe is me. And that's where we'll stop today.